What would happen if you lost your head? For most creatures, including humans, that's it. Game over, lights out, end of story. But what if I told you that for some animals, losing their head isn't the end? For them, it's just a minor inconvenience. In today's episode, we're exploring one of the weirdest survival strategies in nature. The creatures that can live, sometimes for days, weeks, or even months, without their heads. Why do they do it? How is it possible? And what can it teach us about life, the brain, and even the future of robotics? Let's dive into it. First, let's talk about you. Why can't humans survive without a head? Well, it's not just about your face being gone. Your head is basically the headquarters of your entire body. Inside your skull, your brain controls almost everything you do, whether you're thinking about it or not. Breathing, that's the brainstem. Heartbeat, brainstem again. Digestion, movement, balance, emotions, that's all managed up top. Even when you sleep, your brain is working non-stop to keep you alive. If you lose your head, you're not just losing a body part. You're losing the very thing that keeps the rest of the system running. Imagine a factory where the central computer gets unplugged. The lights don't just flicker, they shut down completely. But in the animal kingdom, not everyone follows the same blueprint. Some creatures have evolved completely different systems, ones that don't rely on a single control center like we do. Take the cockroach, for example. A cockroach can survive for days, even weeks, without its head. That's not science fiction. It's biology. Cockroaches breathe through little holes in their body called spiracles. They don't need their mouth or nose. Oxygen just flows directly to their tissues. Their blood doesn't carry oxygen at all, so there's no panic if circulation slows down. And since their heart is more like a simple tube, it keeps beating no matter what. Even bleeding isn't much of a problem. Cockroaches have an open circulatory system, and their neck seals itself off like a cap. Without a head, they can still crawl, react to touch, and perform basic movements, until eventually they starve. Which, if you think about it, is kind of impressive. They don't die from losing their head, they die from not being able to eat. But cockroaches aren't the only headless survivors. Meet the planarian flatworm. These tiny creatures are basically biological Lego sets. Cut a flatworm in half and both halves can grow into new worms. Cut off its head, no problem. It just regenerates a new one, complete with a fresh brain, eye spots, and mouth. This happens because flatworms have a special kind of cell called neoblasts, stem cells that can become almost anything. It's like having an unlimited repair kit inside your body. Scientists still don't fully understand how planarians know how to rebuild a head, but they do know this. The instructions for life aren't just stored in the head. They're written into every part of the body. For flatworms, losing a head is just Tuesday. And then there's the weirdest case of all, a chicken named Mike. In 1945, a farmer in Colorado tried to butcher a rooster, but his axe missed, just slightly. He cut off most of the head, but left the brainstem and part of the ear intact. Amazingly, Mike didn't die. In fact, he stood up and started walking around. He tried to peck for food. He preened his feathers without a head. The farmer, realizing he had a medical oddity on his hands, decided to keep Mike alive. He fed him using a dropper, placing food directly into his throat. Mike lived like this for 18 months, touring sideshows across the United States. Newspapers called him the Headless Wonder Chicken. People paid to see him. Scientists studied him. How did he survive? Well, it turns out that chickens don't rely on their entire brain to stay alive. Much of their basic movement and balance is controlled by the brainstem, which in Mike's case was still intact. In other words, he was a chicken running on autopilot. So, how is this actually possible? How can a creature lose its head and still function? The answer lies in how life is wired. Humans, along with most mammals, have what's called a centralized nervous system. Think of it like a main server. Everything runs through it. damage the server, and the whole system crashes. But not every creature evolved this way. Cockroaches, worms, and even birds. They use distributed systems. For example, a cockroach doesn't rely on just one brain. It has clusters of nerves called ganglia spread throughout its body. Each ganglion controls a part of the body, almost like local managers running separate departments. Imagine if your arms and legs could operate on their own, even if your brain went offline. That's basically how a cockroach works. When you cut off its head, the rest of the body doesn't even get the memo, at least not right away. Flatworms take this to another level. They don't just survive without a head, they rebuild one. But here's the weird part. Scientists still aren't exactly sure how a flatworm knows which part is missing. If you cut it one way, it grows a new head. Cut it another way, it grows a tail. Somehow, each piece of the worm knows its place in the system. It's like biological GPS. Researchers have even experimented with teaching flatworms simple tasks, like moving toward food in a maze. And when they cut off the worm's head, the new head sometimes remembers the task. Wait, what? How can a worm with a brand new brain still remember something? That's one of biology's strangest open questions. Are memories stored in the body, in the cells? Nobody knows for sure, but it's one more way nature keeps surprising us. So, why did this happen? Why did evolution allow some creatures to live without a head? It all comes down to survival strategy. For small animals, especially ones low on the food chain, life is dangerous. Predators are everywhere, injuries happen all the time, so nature gave them a backup plan. If you're a cockroach, losing your head isn't necessarily fatal. If you're a flatworm, getting chopped in half is just a mild inconvenience. It's the ultimate form of biological resilience. Humans took a different path. We evolved big brains, capable of language, art, technology. But that came with a trade-off. We're more fragile. Our complexity makes us vulnerable in ways these simpler creatures are not. In a weird way, simpler can be smarter, if survival is the goal. Interestingly, this isn't just an odd piece of trivia. It's shaping the future of technology. Robotics engineers are starting to design decentralized machines. Instead of one central computer running the whole robot, each limb or part manages itself. Why? Because it's safer, more robust. If one piece fails, the rest keeps going. Nature figured this out hundreds of millions of years ago. Some modern drones, for example, can fly even if parts of their systems are damaged. That's cockroach logic, applied to tech. And in medicine, scientists are studying regenerative biology. They're asking, if flatworms can regrow a head, could humans one day regrow organs? Maybe even limbs? It's not science fiction anymore. It's research happening right now. So here's the bigger question. What does it actually mean to be alive? Is life just about having a head or a brain? Or is it about the simple act of staying in motion, no matter what? For cockroaches, flatworms, and even headless chickens, life isn't something that happens in one place. It's not trapped inside the skull. It's distributed, spread out, decentralized. They don't have to think about survival. They're built for it. And maybe that's why these creatures have lasted for hundreds of millions of years. They're not the fastest, they're not the smartest, but they are, undeniably, the most persistent. In nature, survival doesn't always belong to the biggest brain. Sometimes, it belongs to the creature that can take the worst possible hit. And just keep going. Think about that. Some animals can lose their head and still function, still adapt, still live. Not because they're weak, but because they're wired for resilience. And in a world full of uncertainty, that might be the most powerful survival skill of all.